This is the introduction to the book of 1st and 2nd Chronicles from the Message translation of the Bible. There is always more than one way to tell a story. The story of Israel's kings is first narrated in the books of Samuel and Kings. Here is another telling of the same story, 100 or so years later, by another voice and from another perspective, Chronicles. Some of the earlier narrative is omitted and there are substantial additions, but it is recognisably the same story. But Israel's fortunes have changed considerably since the earlier authoritative writings in Genesis through Kings. God's people are in danger of losing touch with what made them God's people in the first place. In retrospect, from the low point in their history in which they now find themselves, it looked very much like a succession of world powers. Assyria and Egypt, Babylon and Persia have been calling all the shots. The people of Israel are swamped by alien influences. They are also, it seems, mired in internal religious pettiness. Will they be obliterated? A new writer, it may have been Ezra, took it in hand to tell the old and by now familiar story, but with a new slant. His task was to recover and restore Israel's confidence and obedience as God's people. Remarkably and improbably, considering the political and cultural conditions of the time, this writer insisted, with very little hometown support, on the core identity of Israel as a worshipping people in the Davidic tradition. And he did it all by writing the book you're about to read. Israel did not finally disappear into the ancient Near East melting pot of violence and sex and religion. Names launch this story. Hundreds and hundreds of names, lists of names, pages after pages of names, personal names. There is no true storytelling without names, and this immersion in names calls attention to the individual, the unique, the personal, which is inherent in all spirituality. Nameless genealogies occurs in other places in Scripture, Genesis, Numbers, Matthew and Luke, but none as extravagantly copious as here. Holy history is not constructed from impersonal forces or abstract ideas. It is woven from names, persons, each one unique. Chronicles erects a solid defence against depersonalised religion, and Chronicles provides a witness to the essential and primary place of accurate worship in human life. The narrative backbone of Chronicles is worship, the place of worship, the Jerusalem temple, the ministers of worship, the priests and Levites, the musical components of worship, both vocal and instrumental, and the authoritative role of King David, the master of worship, who maintains faithfulness and integrity in worship. In the way this story of Israel's past is told, nothing takes precedence over worship in nurturing and protecting our identity as a people of God. Not politics, not economics, not family life, not art, and nothing in the preparation for and conduct of worship is too small to be left to whim or chance. Nothing in architecture, personnel, music or theology. Early threats to Israel's identity and survival as a people of God frequently came in the form of hostile outsiders, Egyptians, Canaanites, Philistines, Amalekites and others. But in this assessment of what happened, right and faithful worship turns out to be what counts most of all. The people of God are not primarily a political entity or a military force or an economic power. They are a holy congregation diligent in worship. To lose touch with the Davidic and Moses-based life of worship is to disintegrate as a holy people, to be seduced by a popular pagan worship of the surrounding culture is to be obliterated as a holy people. Not many readers of this text will find their names in the list of names in this book. Few worshipping congregations will recognise architectural continuities between the temple and their local church sanctuaries. Not many communities have access to a pool of Levites from which to recruit choirs and appoint leaders of worship. So what's left? Well, worship is left, and names. Accurate worship, defined and fed by the God who reveals himself in Jesus Christ, and personal names that add up to a people of God, a holy congregation. Christians have characteristically read and prayed themselves into Chronicles in order to stay alert to the irreducibly personal in all matters of faith and practice, and to maintain a critical awareness that the worship of God is the indispensable foundation for living whole and redeemed lives.